What's up, everyone? I'm Ruthina Porterfield, and this is Liberated Conversations with Ruthina. This episode is all about your vote. In about 2 weeks, the United States of America will be deciding who they want to lead this country for the next 4 years. And in individual states, people will be deciding who they want to represent them. We also will be deciding laws, measures, props, all kinds of things that are supposed to help make our lives better. It is an amazing responsibility. It is a responsibility of which some hold in the highest regard of citizenship and others disregard it completely. I'm going to be talking about that responsibility with another podcaster, April Rivers. She is a co host of the Truth Reveal podcast, and we're going to be talking about voting and how it affects our lives. Speaking of which, I hope you have joined us for our new devotion for the month. It's entitled How We Live. And all you have to do is, if you have the YouVersion Bible app, go in the Bible app plans and look for How We Live, so that you can join in with us and be ready for the next live devotional episode on the 2nd of next month. But right now, today, we're going to be talking about voting. So join the conversation.
If we say that love covers a multitude of sin, then why are Sunday services so segregated? Can we talk about it? If we say that love covers...
What's up, April? How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Ruthina. How are you?
I am good. Did you recognize that voice from the intro?
Oh, yes, I did. That's my lovely co-host, Latricia
Yes.
Peak, aka Sweet. Yes.
Yes, it is from Sweet's album that she has with your other co-host, Holly Harris, on the
Yes.
Truth Reveal podcast. And we're probably going to be referencing the podcast throughout because you guys have actually covered this particular topic on your own podcast, correct?
Yes, we have. Yes.
Yeah, and I listened to it, and it is a deep conversation, I think, no matter what platform you have it on. So
That's right.
I want to jump right in, if that's okay.
That's wonderful. I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, first, I want to talk about, I always start from like back, right? Because I like to establish our connection for everyone to understand. April and I don't only know each other because we are fellow podcasters. We are also two alumni of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And yay. I might edit that out.
Right.
But we are fellow alumni, and we actually shared being literally in the same dorm room during the election of the year 2000. And the reason why I want to talk about that election is because it was the first time I really grasped and understood the power of each vote. So what do you remember about that night? Because I remember some details. Like, I'll tell, for example, I remember I was working at the Hilton University place at the hotel, and I came back. And the reason I'm so glad to talk to you about this is because I remember calling you the morning after the election, your dorm room from my dorm room, saying, girl, I fell asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning. What's going on? And you said, girl, we still don't have a president. What do you remember about that election?
Well, I'm going to tell you, you made me go back in my memory banks. So the first thing, when you said we're going to talk about 2000, I was like, hanging chads, things of that nature, just kind of the news blurts that was going on. But yes, we're as college students, trying to figure out what's going on. And because I think the only other election that I remember paying attention to, and might have been one prior, I did when Bill Clinton was running. I don't know if we were old enough when Clinton did his last term, but if we weren't, that's the first time I paid attention and became aware, Okay. And so 2000, I just remember saying, well, I guess they'll let us know something after a while, but as the story just kind of I don't want to get ahead of you. Just for that night,
Mhm.
I really don't remember much, but just, like you said, we have that conversation. We still
Right.
don't have a president.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, it'll get resolved, not knowing what we were going to experience for like probably the next month. I think it took.
Yeah, it took like a month. It took like a month
Yeah.
before we actually found out who was going to be the president of the United States
Mhm.
for the next 4 years. It was crazy. I
Mhm.
thought it was a crazy time, but it definitely made me say, okay, bump this. I'm voting.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I get it. And I remember that year people asked, because I was in North Carolina, but I was a resident sort of South Carolina.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I was not aware of things like absentee ballots and mail in voting and all of those things that people are really stressing right now. And
Yeah.
I think there is a problem because we were both young. We were in our early 20s. Like
Yes.
I think
Very
I was
early.
23,
Mhm.
maybe. And I think I know no one told me anything about absentee ballots, mail in voting. You're going to college. This is still your responsibility. You have an option to do it this. No one told me any of that. Did anybody tell you any of that?
No.
Well, you lived in North Carolina,
Yeah, and
so
yeah, and I said a little different for me because I lived in North Carolina. The only way I was a little bit familiar with absentee ballot voting, even though my parents did discuss it because my father being in the military.
yeah,
Yeah, so for military families, you're stationed in wherever, but you want to vote in local elections. I knew that they could mail in something to participate.
right,
In their home state, but yeah, I really didn't know much, and compared to now, what we see, it
right,
was nowhere near put on the level of front upfront info like we
right,
have now about those things. So
right. I remember people asking me about, which is going to lead into how I'm jumping into the topic. I remember people asking me about voting. Did you vote? Did you vote? And I'm going to be real. I was actually scared to say that I didn't because I
mm,
wanted to vote so bad.
yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
just, because I
Yeah.
was so nervous about saying that I didn't vote. And it annoyed the crap out of me that I didn't because I didn't know how. I had
Right.
no idea how to. So when you talk about reasons for voting, it for me, that's, there's history and all that stuff, but for me the personal reason
Hmm.
is that election that taught me
Mm,
that every single vote counted. What
counts.
do you say
Yeah.
is your personal reason for voting?
To be honest, I think it was really family tradition. I grew up with a family who voted. We weren't very political, as in, I didn't hear a lot of political talk, but I knew that my parents, my grandparents were participants in the system. And pretty much, I just kind of took the conversation of the day where just hearing that it's important. And I think part of me was just like, hey, I'm grown. I get to do grown folk things, which is which to
Okay.
me is participating and doing civic duties. So really, I think personally it was really about that, like adulting, and I was an adult, and this is what adults do, and I had seen it mirrored before. Now I'm gonna be real with you, as far
Okay.
as my informed participation in the process, that's another animal, because I knew the two people in the presidential election that they put on the TV all the time. But
Right.
honey, my little local elections, they was assaulted. It was just like eeny, meeny, miny. Don't know you, don't know you, don't know you. But
Right.
I'm gonna put this bubble, like Democrat, Independent, Republican. I just was like, I was just doing. I
Oh
had,
no, you were
I
not
had,
treated like a multiple choice test.
I was. I didn't have any allegiance to any particular party. I really did, and it was just,
Right.
so we get, hopefully I get that you was only 20 something pass on the
I hope
informed
so,
part,
girl. Oh, I hope
the
so.
informed level. But that's really what made it important and personal to me. Just traditionally, I come from a family that voted, and I just
Yeah.
felt like that's what adults do. That was part of me put myself like I'm grown, and this is what I do now.
And see, it's funny because I think we would get that past in our generation, but I think from the millennial down to Gen Z, because they are more active and more involved in the process and what's going on, I don't think they're as willing to give that pass right now,
Mhm.
because this generation that's directly behind us, and then the generation even after, they are so involved in I feel, and
Mhm.
from what I saw, I feel like they were so there. This generation is so much more involved in the process, and so involved in the issues that are going on. And it makes me a little, feel off about like that. I don't know. It just makes me feel a little off. Like, what were we doing? Like,
Yeah.
what were we doing?
You know what? We were being young people, and I think like this because the climate was different. You see, right now because of social media, sometimes you can have this
Yes.
feeling of involvement when you're not really involved. You're involved on the internet. You understand what I'm saying? You become,
Yeah.
I make a distinction between. I think we have a very, which is a good thing, a very activist generation. The younger kids are, and that's a
Right.
good thing. But there's a difference between activism, even, and being involved in your actual politics of your local area,
Okay.
knowing who your council people are, knowing what's going on and the stuff that's affecting you, your school system and stuff. See, when you get these gray hairs in your hair and your eyebrows like I
Girl,
got,
close up, close up, close up.
you start kind of looking at things a little differently. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. The climate that the young people are in are just not a forgiving climate. People get
They're
canceled
not.
every half a second,
They're not. They're not.
so
That
they're in a different
cancel
time.
that cancel culture. I thought about that a little bit when you talked about no allegiance to any particular party, because I'm proud to say that I have no allegiance to any particular party at this point.
Mhm.
And I think honestly, I don't think anyone should really, because there are so many different opinions and issues, and no
Yeah,
one is completely right and no one is completely wrong.
I agree.
And so, but there's this heaviness of condemnation, for lack of a better
Mhm.
word, regarding where you stand on issues, politics, whatever. And so I think that is an issue, which leads me to something that I definitely wanted to cover regarding vote shaming.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's something, I've seen the term sparsely here and there. I think it even bows to asking people, are you registered to vote? And people just saying, yeah, because they don't want to be bothered. Hey, I'm going to be honest. Look, Instagram has that darn thing on top of your, on top of your rolling, you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
banner that said, are you registered to vote? And I'm like, yes, how many times do I have to tell you? Like, can you please?
Girl.
It's like, but I think there is a thing that is affecting how people feel about the process, because they feel almost attacked, either when they're asked about that or when they're asked about their opinion. That's why I don't agree with polls. But have you heard the term vote shaming before?
I have not, but I tell you what, I've seen the practice.
Hello.
I haven't heard the term
Hello.
coin, but I have seen the practice, and I agree with you. I want to know if after this election, if we could sue for harassment of. I am getting so many spam texts with other names
Girl, me
besides
too.
my name saying this is so and so from this council. I am from this committee. I'm from this party. How did y'all get my number? Why
My,
y'all texting me?
why? Can you leave me alone?
Yes,
Hello.
yes, I want a class action suit of harassment. But yes, I do know what you're talking about the ban. I think Facebook has it as well.
Yep.
So you're right. The vote shaming, and I think it's been going on really before now. We probably just didn't. This is just a magnified level of it.
Right.
I literally, um, and I mentioned this in one of our podcasts, but there was I'm not going to name names because I really don't know the brother's name. It was a preacher in his pulpit, and I was sent this instant message. It was like a
Mhm.
mass thing, so it was sent out to a group of us. I didn't even know who it originated from, but he pretty much said that if you did not vote, you were as bad as the KKK. and
Hold up, wait, hold up, back up.
yeah.
I remember, I remember hearing you talk about it, but I don't remember it in detail. Just, I want you to be specific.
Sir.
Was he saying if you don't vote, period, you are as bad as the KKK, or if you don't vote a certain way?
He didn't name the certain way, but
Okay.
in his talk, you did see, you knew who we didn't like, but
Okay.
but he didn't say a certain way. He just said that he said because there are so many justices and judges being put in to seats, that if you don't vote, and that means assuming automatically that we vote for who he prefers,
Right.
that we're doing harm because there are people being seated that will do black people harm and people of color harm. And that was in a
Oh,
very extreme, and I think a very irresponsible, like I said, I don't know this man. I'm not going to name a name, don't remember his name. He might be a great person, but that was a very irresponsible use, I think, of the pulpit. Now you talk about one level of shame, that's some deep shame. If you're going to tell me that me deciding that I don't want to decide, um
I mean,
makes me as bad as Americanized, the American terrorist group, who burned, killed, murdered, raped, all and all this other stuff. I think it's extreme. we,
it's
we
extreme.
yeah, we've come to a level of extremism that's a little bit concerning on both ends. Most
Yeah,
people are like, okay, give me a break, hold up,
I know, right?
you're going too far now,
Slow your roll.
right, slow down. But yes, I think that the climate of vote shaming or whatever, it's become to an extremist level, and it comes down to really this spirit of control. Like,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
says that I don't get to part of my freedom is that I don't get to control Ruthina Porterfield. So
Right.
if you vote, I don't get to go in the booth with you and tell you who you should vote for. I don't
Right.
get to go reveal who you voted for and who you didn't vote for. I don't get to treat you differently. Hypothetically, I'm not supposed to treat you differently if you don't participate in the process.
Right.
But it's just, I don't know. It's a lot. Society has went left on some of this stances.
Yeah, I think part of it is that is this assumption that that you a lot of it is this assumption that everyone should feel the same way, which
Hmm.
is so it's kind of hypocritical when you want to value diversity and you want to
Yeah.
hear everyone's opinions and
Hmm.
perspectives, but if they don't agree with you, all of a sudden it's like shun you,
Right.
cancel you,
Like, be
you're out
quiet.
of it. Yeah. So I can totally, it's one of the reasons why polling is so unreliable,
It really is.
because what people say when asked a question could be totally different from what they actually will or will not
Yes.
do. And I think we found that proof in the election 4 years ago.
Yes.
It was very, very clear.
Hmm.
And honestly, when you actually look at the numbers, you could probably see that also the first time Barack Obama was elected, because
Hmm.
no one was expecting John McCain to get slammed the way that he did in the
True.
2008 election. This man was completely out of the race. It wasn't even, what, a few hours after all of the polls had closed across the
Just
country?
like that.
Go ahead.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. When President Barack Obama got elected for the first term,
Mhm.
I was ready. I had got sleep the night prior. I thought we was gonna be up all
Me
night.
too.
I was ready for this extreme, intense fight. And when, in a matter of, I don't know, minutes after I got settled, we had the first black president. President Barack Obama was, you know, he was a clear winner. It won't even close. I was shocked.
I was
So,
shocked too. And the thing about it was, because remember, I was on the West Coast already.
mhm.
It was the first election that I was able to vote in California as a West Coast voter.
Mhm.
And so I voted, but it's still hours. Do you know what I mean? I voted
Right,
very,
your
very
hours, right?
early in the
Yeah,
day. So
yeah.
there were still hours, but there's an area in Los Angeles that Magic Johnson basically owns the entire area. And so he had basically kind of shut down this entire restaurants, shops, everything. And it was where all the Black people in LA basically went to patiently wait for the
Yeah.
radio station was out there. It was a whole situation. And
Mhm.
so I went out there and we are all standing around. People are just arriving. And then all of a sudden, like I said, people are just arriving. It's got to be what, maybe 7 o'clock.
Mhm.
Like it's super early. And then all of a sudden you hear this uproar. And I'm like, hold up, y'all. Like the polls haven't even completely closed here. What are y'all talking about? They were like, we don't need California. Like
Yeah,
it's done.
yeah.
It's done. I was like, hold up.
Man.
It was amazing. But when you look at the numbers originally, when they were polling, no one was expecting that kind of landslide. No
Right,
one. And
right,
so it shouldn't have shocked people too much when 2016 came around and
right.
all the polls said that Hillary Clinton was going to take it and it was all good. And sure enough, not far into it,
Not
it was
so.
very clear
Yeah,
once
yeah.
again.
Once
And
again.
so I think the whole idea of honesty during polling and survey questions, it's not a concrete concept.
No, it's not.
It's just not. And I know for me, when I get into conversations, those conversations get a little murky for me
Yeah.
because I'm a bold Christian, Jesus loving fanatic,
Mhm.
but I have a lot of close personal friends that are almost like family that are of different races and
Mhm.
of different political views and definitely do not go to church, and they support me and say, hey, Ruthina, go, but I'm not going with you. Like, it's like, I
Yeah.
mean, and we just support each other. And I think it gets murky because when I'm friends with these people, they tend to make assumptions that I believe and support a lot of the stuff that they support, Christian or not.
Mhm.
They believe that I support a lot of the things that they support. And then we start talking, and I'm like, you sure you want my opinion?
Right,
Are you sure?
right.
And it's that thing of back in the day when you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics,
Right, right. Those were the
you
two things you
know?
stayed away from if you want to stay friends.
Right. And now you really need to stay away from it if you want to keep your job, if you
Huh.
want to, you know what I'm saying? If you want to keep your family, if you want to, it's not even about keeping friends anymore. It's about keeping your livelihood.
That
It's
is,
a,
that's scary. And I'm going to tell you, Ruthina, why that's so scary to me. For a
yeah.
long time, and not it's not always been for the best, but America, we're conceited. We
We
pretty much think,
are.
we're better than all
But
the other countries.
expound upon that. I want you to make it real clear
Okay,
what you
so just
mean.
conceded in the way of, in my opinion, that we're better. We're not like those countries over there. They in there fighting in the parliament, fist fighting.
Oh,
They have very rough transfers of power. They don't transfer power. They basically kill the current leader and then they seat another one. Just
yeah.
old school, like King Henry type stuff, and the just
Yeah.
just fighting for seats. And in America, we say that we have a very civil, which we do, a very civil, in comparison to some, a civil way of doing things. And we're kind of elitist on a lot of things of just like, oh, we're better than everybody else, which I think everybody should have a little bit of a pride in wherever
Right
they
from
live
where
at,
they're from. Yeah.
right, from where they're from. But that being said, um, I see some of our sentiments and some of our practices morphing into the very places that, I guess, mirroring the very places that we kind of used to kind of stick our nose up at. Because when it comes to livelihood, it would be like this. You've seen the movie, and I'm using an extreme example. um,
Okay.
The movie with Don Cheadle, where I think it was with Don Cheadle, where you had it was on the actual war or between
The situation in Rwanda.
in Rwanda. Yes, the
Okay.
situation in Rwanda, and you had two groups. I think the Tutsis or I'm
Yes,
going to
the
mess up the
Tutsis.
names, you know, but
It was the
those two
Tutsis.
groups, right? And
Mhm.
so they had a look, and whenever whoever was in power, they couldn't work, they couldn't live, they got slaughtered, right?
Yeah.
And whoever was in power at that time was who that ethnic group got the favor, right?
Yeah.
And so if we go this route where we say whether you're with the elephant or the donkey depends on uh or your view about X depends on whether you can work at this
Right.
company and whether you can uh patronize or whether you will or will not patronize an
Right.
establishment, because we you know, I think that is a dangerous place to get to.
It is.
It's not good. It
Yeah.
won't be good for us in the long run because we don't want to repeat the mistakes of some of our neighbors in other countries. That's not, at
Right.
least that's not where I want to live.
Right.
And if
Right.
people will, the run of the mill people like us will kind of stop and kind of stamp out when we see this extremism
Yeah.
and you know, that would help. But yeah, I don't, I think it's a dangerous place for us to be. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I think we're entering a lot of danger zones that we
Mhm.
are not, for the sake of. Hmm. I have to pick my words carefully, right?
Mhm. Yes.
I think in our efforts to include everyone, we still end up shunning a
Mhm.
group.
Mhm.
So I think if you're going to do it on one end, you got to do it on the other end as well.
Correct.
So, and I talked about a personal experience I had, um, where it was one opinion that was different from mine that ended a relationship in regards to understanding that, look, if you're going to accept this, you can't just disrespect this whole way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so you have to be open to hear every opinion. Now, this is not to say, because let's be clear, because I'm not saying extremes, right? We're not talking right and wrong. Right and wrong are very clear and very
Yeah.
finite on certain issues,
Mhm.
on uh certain things. It's
Yeah.
very clear. So you can't just go killing people for no reason, or just because of their color of their skin, or just because of the sexual practice that they have. You can't go killing people for that. There are some things that are right and wrong, and so there are things you have to break down. But to just not hear why someone feels a certain way about something, you gotta. Because I actually am fascinated by people who, I mean, as a Black person,
Mhm.
I am quite fascinated when I hear people disregard the whole, not the organization Black Lives Matter, but the Black Lives Matter movement. I
Yeah.
am fascinated when I hear things, those particular opinions. I am fascinated when I hear why some people will vote by mail, and why some people say, nope, I'm going in. I am fascinated by all of those things because that's kind of what makes this country different.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you're so right about the danger zone. You're so right, which is another reason why we're supposed to vote. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta let your voice be heard. I gotta address my last interview when I talk about personal reasons for voting. I spoke with a family member of one of the people who were killed in the Emanuel 9 shooting 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And I listened to her story, and I listened because I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. So, of
Yeah.
course, I knew one of the people. It was hard for you not to know someone or know someone who knew someone.
Mhm.
And when I think about that, and I'm like, dang, like if I don't vote, what they die for? Like, like what? Yeah, a lot of people say I vote because my parents or grandparents or someone participated in the civil rights movement. We talking 5 years ago. Like,
Right. Right.
darn,
Yeah.
5 years ago. And so, which is why it's super important when you talk things like that happening. Yeah, the national election is important, but darn, local elections are super important. And I don't
Mhm.
think people understand that local elections are more, for me, I
Yes,
think local elections are more important.
I agree.
Okay, then, and for those that don't, I'm welcome to hear why. I'm
Mhm.
welcome to hear why. But when you talk about what affects you directly,
Mhm.
it's those local elections. I am curious. I'm from South Carolina. Girl, I wish I could vote in South Carolina so bad because I want to vote for this new senator so bad. I really do. But I'm curious in North Carolina, what's on
Mhm.
the political landscape there? What's
Okay.
happening in the political landscape in North Carolina?
Well, we have some doozies. Our governor right now we have a Democratic governor by Governor Cooper,
Okay.
and who is his opponent is a man by the name of Dan Forest. It's hard because I didn't watch the debate as it happened. I went back on YouTube and watched it. I thought they were to have more than one, but I can't find but one posted. And
Hmm.
then another very heated debate is race is the Senate race. And that one, I'm
In
gonna be
North
honest with
Carolina.
you. Yeah, in North Carolina, we have Tom Tillis and Cal Cunningham. Tom Tillis is our current senator. Uh,
Okay.
and that one has been a heated debate. I think they've had three debates. They're supposed to have three debates. So the landscape really, it, it's hard to be different right now as far as the issues because we've all experienced the coronavirus together. So that's kind of it's not unique to North Carolina, but of course, talking about the dealings with coronavirus is up there as far as the issues that they're going back and forth about.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Now, do you want me to get into the sentiment of the people, or just kind of what?
I want the sentiment of the people. I want to know what people are talking about, and I'll tell you why. Here in California, there are. You got to remember, I'm in the state where Kamala Harris was the original.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so those elections tend to be a big deal, but the elections here in LA tend to be a big deal because we always have props, what they call props, on the ballot. Props are basically laws or measures that they
Hmm.
place on the ballot for people to vote on regarding money,
Hmm.
funds, where they're allocated, or where regarding different statutes. For example, a hot button prop that is huge in California right now is deciding whether or not app-based people who work for app-based companies, so you're talking Uber, Lyft,
Yeah. Hmm.
DoorDash,
Hmm.
whether or not they should be considered as employees versus being
Business owners.
free contract.
Okay.
I forgot
Okay. Contract workers, or
yeah. What
hmm.
that will determine is whether or not these people will get benefits.
Oh.
The state is deciding that.
Hmm.
There is a prop on the bill right now regarding sentencing. So important, whether or
Yes.
not people who come out on parole can vote while they're on parole, or do they have to wait until their parole is up to be able to vote?
Oh, that's
So
big.
it's all kinds of different and I can tell you it's like 6 or 7 different props right now. And moving to North Carolina and seeing how much they vote on that stuff, because I've been here so long, I've forgotten
Yeah.
what it's like at home. And so I'm wondering, do we have, and I still say we because I'm from the Carolinas, I'm a Carolina
Right.
diva, do we have those particular opportunities in the Carolinas?
Now that is a wonderful question, and that's something that I wish I would have done my homework on that before I got on got
Oh,
on, because I'm not sure. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I have not heard much talk. Like prior to and I only know some of this just because of where I work and things like that. I work for a
Okay.
nonprofit. But prior to funding for which I think everybody got this funding for the programs that was going to help prisoners who got out, come out with their ID and then have measures where they're put in temporary housing, and have government funds to basically make the transition. So
Okay.
you if a family won't take you or you can't be uh the family is people you can't be around, like people with guns or whatever, that there is a housing for you and that there's funds for entities to build this place and to help you get in this transition. Now, I don't know if that we have any measures dealing with that. I just know that stuff was kind of coming down the pipeline, and then COVID came and pushed all memories of all things that was going on. I'm not sure what measures we have, additional measures we're going to have on the ballot. All I know, unfortunately, is based on what the talk is. And I'm going to tell you something. When I went back and looked at the debates of 2000.
You did?
Yeah, I
How
did.
interesting.
Because
Okay.
because I kind of, I was like, oh, I gotta get myself back in the mindset of the election of
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
I went back and looked at the debate with then Governor Bush. It was Governor Bush
Right.
and the Vice President, Vice
Yes.
President Gore.
Al Gore.
And I noticed the more times have changed, the more things stay the same.
Okay.
Healthcare, the two things they talk: healthcare, bringing up the tax cuts for the top 1%. Now, all those things, I could have took, if I didn't show you the clip and I just took some words and typed up words
Like
and
sound
showed
bites.
it to you, sound bites, but where you couldn't hear the voices and just had you read it, you wouldn't have known whether to place some of the conversation in that election of 2000 or the one that's happening in 2020.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And I was like, what in the world? I was like, we haven't solved anything yet.
That is a great observation. And the reason why I say that is because I am so tired of everyone saying this is the most important election that we've had. The most important. I'm like, hold up. We still talking about the stuff from 20 years ago. How is this not I thought last one was most important.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute, my bad. I thought the one before that
was the most important.
And it's like, until you actually make progress on the issues that you were talking about 20 years ago, you can't sit up here and tell me how important an election is.
That part.
That is amazing to me. That is what I think. That the difference isn't the issues. The difference is the passion. That's the difference. And public knowledge and understanding of the issues. Because at the end of the day, people vote their pocket. At the end of the day, people vote their household. That's what they vote. And this whole idea of the most important election is such a crock. It's just
it's the most important because that's what they want you to focus on.
Right
now. Focus on this until 4 years from now, and then that one will be the most important of our time. Now, mind you, we've got a lot of things. 2020 has dealt us a lot of stuff.
For sure.
And I think it's just because I told someone that it's not that any new problems have erupted that weren't already here, but Corona made us, Corona made us, or the quarantine made us sit still long enough to pay attention long enough.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be honest, when I was hustling and bustling, I'm afforded to work from home. Most of my work is from home because you talk about issues. I'm dealing with children who are learning from home at 100% capacity. Yes, at 100% capacity. Now that ought to be said about that. Like my county was one of the last counties in North Carolina, just an honorable mention, to make a decision on whether our kids was what we were doing. But I digress. Anyway, But we sat still long enough to not, be in the hustle of bustle and be like, yeah, I hear y'all, but I got to go to work. Or I
Yeah.
hear y'all, but I got other stuff going on. We were just still enough to be like, so you don't say. Like, really?
Really?
This is real. Well,
No,
what can we do?
say? You said stand back and start a band. Wait, what?
Yeah. Or even the first thing, the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, because we mentioned George Floyd, but I'm gonna be honest. What happened with Ahmaud Arbery took me back to Philando Castile and took me back, and I'm sorry, I'm taking you back to the killing of Ahmaud Arbery was the one that the two white gentlemen, he was jogging in the neighborhood, and the two white gentlemen came and shot him.
In the street.
They just shot him in the street and said that something else had went on or whatever, and they didn't get immediately locked up. So that started that to where then I became aware and kind of looking at this again and started feeling those same feelings of during those shootings that happened. And which I think that the Philando Castile and it was another one that happened. I think that was during Obama's.
There were two that happened. Philando Castile got a little more press because of the circumstances of because he was killed in front of a little girl.
Yes, but that made my mind go back to that, and then of course Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd. But I think it's not that our issues have changed much, right? It's the attention to and what's being done about the issue. Like you said, we'll be talking about this unless something is done. And I think, and one thing I thought about too is, yes, we need to vote. I believe in voting, but I don't believe in vote shaming. But I believe in voting. But we also have to have a way to push the issues forward after we've done the vote. Exactly. Because a lot of times we put our chips in, give the politician what they want, which is the seat, and then we don't get back what we wanted. We don't get back what we were told.
The word is accountability.
Yes, accountability. And if one thing that I would like to learn, and what I feel like I've seen different things with some celebrity, I'm not going to mention because I don't want to take you down a conversation path you don't want to go, but certain celebrities bringing issues to the table and saying, "Hey,"
thinking of what you're thinking about.
And saying, "Look, who gonna do it?"
Hello, I don't care. That's my thing. Like,
I don't care who you are. I don't care who you rep. Who's going to be serious? Because I'm going to tell you something. Now, let me say this part, because and if you've seen, you know me, and you've seen our past podcast, and I've become a little bit hot because we don't hear the word reparations. But I'll be daggone if that ain't what we've been said. We've wanted to hear some. Now I don't speak for all Black people, but reparations, not for minorities, but for descendants of slaves in this country.
Right.
Just like the Jews were wronged and they got a settlement and got things done, just like I believe the Asian Americans, which I don't know all about it, but like how they were forced to build railroads here in the United States. And I believe some type of repair, because that's all reparations is, some type of financial repair was given. Our ancestors have worked to be one of the only reasons why America is and has been a financial powerhouse, even though it may be depleting, is because of this slave labor.
Yeah, it's the foundation of
work,
the country. Yeah,
free work, and you were able to invest nothing but what it took to sell a human being or buy a human being, and then take the profit off of their labor. Right. And so it's about how we push these people to say, look, and you said something at the beginning, and I said, that's very good at the beginning of the podcast, where we were talking about, I think Bob Johnson said this, that someone else coined this. I don't know if it was the Black Caucus or the NAACP used to have a theme. And they said, we have no permanent party, but only permanent interests. I was watching an interview with Bob Johnson. And he was like, we have permanent interest. And unless we as a group, and what I mean by a group, not just Black people, any group says, look, this is our interest, because you're right, people do vote their pocket. People vote their pocket, and they say, we understand what you want, but we demand what we want.
Hello.
And it's not an honorable mention. I want more. Oh, Lord, have help me, God,
Yeah.
for things I'm going to say. I want more than artwork.
Let it run through the brain before it comes out.
Yeah, I will. I want more than artwork. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Artwork is beautiful, but I want an action attached to it.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And I'm talking about from our politicians.
Okay.
I don't want just honorable mentions. And I think part of me, even though I believe in voting, it's like after I vote and I've given, basically I gave something to give someone a seat in a position, right? So president, senator, governor, right? And
Judges.
whatever judges, yes, very important. Judges. After I do that, how do I make myself count still?
Right. Right.
So that's just questions that I went through my mind.
Yeah, I think, and this kind of goes into the last thing that I was going to talk about when you talk about what happens after you step outside of the voting booth. What happens? And everyone talks about, oh, I don't have time to do this, or I don't have time to do that. You know what? Let's look at something simple. Let's look at all the YouTube videos that you're watching. I'll raise my hand because I am really trying to break a horrible addiction to YouTube.
I love YouTube, girl.
But what I am trying to incorporate are those videos to educate and inform me on issues so that I know more about them, right? When you talk about stepping outside of the voting booth, how about outside of the voting booth before you even go there, right? Let's talk about doing your research. I'm just now becoming a real stickler about judges. And because when you talk about convictions and sentencing and all that, I started getting into it after that case where that boy in Texas killed 5 people and the chick let him off at basically a resort for rehab for alcohol. Trust me, if you look it up, you'll remember. It was, I think the guy was like 18 or 19 years old, and he killed 5 people in a drug driving accident, and a judge let him off for it was, and I was like, you know what? Hold the phone. And so I started getting into that. And so doing that research and then walking out, and let's talk going to those meetings. Let's talk going to your city hall meetings. And if you can't go to those city hall meetings, let's talk watching them online. If you can't watch them online because you don't feel like sitting through it, cool. Look into the articles that tell you what happened at those meetings. It's all those type things. When you watch the news, you need to write down some names. You need to listen for the names that are coming out of these articles. It's stop going by just clickbait, right? Stop taking that clickbait as the word, as the final say. Going and reading those articles. And also a big thing of mine is I'm grateful for the NAACP. I said this in the last interview with the Manual 9 family member Jamila. I'm thank God for the NAACP. Hallelujah. Thank God for Black Lives Matter. I may not agree with everything, but hey, they're doing some work. But there are some organizations that are out here on the ground in your neighborhood, in your city, that are out here doing the work, trying to make a difference. What's up with getting involved with them? And it doesn't have to be a total lifelong forever commitment. How about just finding out some events that are happening and attending them? One of my old coworkers in Charlotte, North Carolina, she has an awesome studio in Charlotte called the Duff and Swat Studio, where she opens up her art studio for artists and all of these types creatives to come in and express themselves. But it is also a place where people meet and discuss ideas, and where you can find out about things that are happening in the city of Charlotte that affect you on a day-to-day basis and how you can make the difference. There are so many things that you can do outside of the voting booth, but for me, it has to start in the voting booth. And then also sending emails to your senator, calling them, leaving messages, because the more you hound them, the more they have to act, because they're going to get tired of people calling. They're gonna get tired of the emails. They're gonna have to do something. So I think I'm so over this whole idea of, well, they're gonna just do whatever they want to do anyway. No, they're gonna do what money dictates. They're gonna do what the votes dictate. They're gonna do that. So I think we need to get out of that. I was listening to you talk about getting kind of up on everything in your election that's going on in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to close out on is understanding the importance of a voting plan. And I think, because you've heard that term before, right? You've heard that people have been talking about that. And I think the term sounds grander or broader than it is.
Yeah.
It really is. I think it's just an idea of, okay, what's looking through. Wait, does North Carolina get sample ballots?
We do. You can get a sample ballot. I don't think it gets mailed to you. At least I haven't gotten it, but I have a voter's guide. So it gives me every candidate, where their position is, their websites, all that stuff. And it's just like a little thick little booklet that we get.
Me too. Yeah. California automatically mails that to every person that's registered to vote. You don't have to ask for it. And see, this should be across every single state. I don't understand this. You automatically get, in fact, I've gotten two, because I have two different addresses. I have a PO box and of course the residential. And I don't care where you live. If you are registered to vote, you get that booklet. You get several, actually, for every election. So even in 2022, I'm going to get another booklet that's going to tell me everyone who's running for whatever that's up on the thing. And like I told you, there's a ton of props in California. And so we have a lot to look over. But my prayer is that people take the 15, 20 minutes, especially in this coronavirus age, to just go through, read, and make some choices, some informed choices. I think that's all a voting plan is, people. It really is just taking 20 minutes. I'm not going to say it's 15, because you got to read through. Or even if you skim through, being an informed voter just takes research. 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And so I think that will make a difference. You guys, Truth Reveal is in the midst of what looks like a series called Kingdom in Politics. Is that right?
Yes, that was.
I want you to talk about that. Well, first, I want you to talk, because you guys did a specific episode. That's the one I heard. And I don't know if that was Kingdom in Politics. I feel like that was something else regarding voting. Is that right?
It may have been Kingdom. We did a 2-part series for Kingdom versus Politics. So it may have still been that series, just it was a separate podcast from that first one. But because we've actually kind of touched on the subject, on other topics. But the Kingdom versus Politics was where we talked about, our central theme was the church's role in politics.
Yes.
So how the line had become blurred, and we agreed to a dangerous place, that your political affiliation and ideology being merged to how good of a Christian you are, whether you're even a Christian, whoever you think is deemed as God's anointed, whoever, and the dangers of that.
That gets into a whole other conversation, because then you start talking about a question of, okay, am I cool with these candidates coming up in my church, basically campaigning, and the bigger your church, and I'm we were a member of a church together in Charlotte that was kind of a big church at that time, and so we got some candidates coming in. But you can imagine what I'm going through now. Well, not now because Corona, but when because Faithful Central is a large church, and so the people that come in and through there, it was like. But I will say this: I'm very, very blessed where I have a pastor that does not tell you who to vote for. He always says, no matter who you vote for, this country will be different. He always says that.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
that's really all it is. And so I encourage people to definitely check out the Truth Revealed podcast, because they touch on a ton of different topics. Right now, everyone's kind of talking about voting, because we want you to get out and vote. We want you to go to your polls, vote in those local elections, vote in this election, go down the ballot and see who is up and through there, and your issues. Just spend the 20 minutes. Everyone's talking about it. If you're not registered yet, that's okay. Get registered anyway,
Yeah.
and be ready for 2 years from now, so that you
Okay.
know what's going on. But yeah, definitely check out their podcast, because I'm so excited to be on this podcast. Ms. April, I want you to hang out
All
for
right.
just a second as I close us out. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Um,
This was a joy. This was good.
Thank you. Hold one moment. So you guys, I want you guys to get out and vote. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us and listening to what we had to say. But here's the thing, you're going to have your own opinions, and you're going to have your own perspectives and own issues. So think about those things as you go out and vote. In the meantime, of course, the edited version of this podcast will be up on the 27th, but you will be able to watch this on YouTube if you'd like. But definitely check out the podcast on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as going to my website, RuthinaPorterfield.com, where you'll be able to see and see all of the podcast episodes that are available, as well as this episode on the 27th. In the meantime, I pray that what we said, or what you heard, or what you saw liberated your mind and your spirit in some way. In the meantime, until our next conversation, peace, stay cool, and God bless.